The views and opinions expressed on Coffee and Compatibility are those of the podcast host and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of ASHI.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Coffee and Compatibility. And with me, with a super cool, awesome background, Dr. Kelly Hitchman. Only Dr. Kelly Hitchman today, though, unfortunately. We'll touch on that briefly. How are you, ma'am?
I'm good. It's good to be with you guys. It is summertime. It's an exciting time. We have so much going on. I do want to say you will notice that our co-host Jeremy Sherrill was not able to be with us today. He is well. He is doing great. He is okay. He will be back with us in the next episode. He was not available to join us today because he is a busy, busy man. But he is doing good.
Don't worry. He's still okay. There's a lot of really big announcements going on right now, right?
Huge. You guys heard the call to subscribe to ASHI HLA YouTube channel, and you are answering the call because you are smart and you know that if you subscribe between now and August 1st to ASHI HLA YouTube channel, you will automatically be entered into a contest, a random drawing to win free registration to the annual meeting. Huge.
Boom.
Huge.
If I could drop this mic and walk away, I would.
You just push the button. Just push the button. Very, very, very simple. We are doing so good. You guys are subscribing, but there are still many of you that need to subscribe. You need to do it. What else is there? What else is there?
Oh, that's right. That's right. We need to vote. If the importance of voting is not clear to you, please contact me and we will have a conversation about why voting is important, right? So remember that you should have received an email from ASHI. In it are the instructions to vote. It has the link. It has your member ID. It has the instructions that you need to do about selecting the candidates. It has information about where to go. There's a whole candidate bios and what they believe and vision and that bits of information so you can make informed decisions. And that is due by July 31st. Okay, so there's still time to do it. I have done it. It took 2 minutes max to do it all. And I didn't have to mail anything as we have before. So please take the time to review the candidate bios and make an informed decision on the candidates that you want as your representation on the ASHI board and other positions.
Yeah, I think that is a big one. Another big one that is going to be here before you know it, in less than 4 months, the 51st annual meeting of the American Society of Histocompatibility and Immunogenetics, early October, Orlando, Florida. It's going to be huge. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a wonderful learning experience, a chance for you to share your work with your colleagues, register, get signed up. That hotel block is going to fill fast. It is a popular meeting. So register for the meeting. It's going to be a great time. We hope to see all of you there. And with that, I am excited to transition to what our topic is going to be today.
What is it? What are we talking about? Tell me.
Right? Our topic today involves something that all of us use, probably daily. Some of us multiple times a day. Some of us multiple times a day. I still can't believe that we have on the show today, Dr. James Robison, who is the original programmer behind IPD-IMGT HLA. You guys use this every day. And before you stop and think, oh my gosh, we're talking about a database, let's stop and think about what that database really is, because James dropped some good data on us. And did you know, because I did not know, I was shocked, that somebody uses IPD, IMGT, HLA every 2 to 3 minutes.
That's insane.
Every
Like that
2 to 3 minutes.
It's got to be all you. Are you just like refresh?
No. I only use it like every 30 to 50 minutes.
It's still a lot.
That's all. It's fair. It's fair. It's very important. I mean,
It's
like
impressive. I still can't every 2 to 3 minutes. Whew.
Yeah, I mean, like maybe people don't realize, like, how often do you get in there to do an alignment? How often do you get in there to use B leader tool? What about T cell epitope tools? You know, like to look up nomenclature. Like how important is this going to be when the new serologic nomenclature definitions come out? How often are you going to use IMGT then? Because it's going to be new for all of us. What did he say? It's like there are 12 new submissions to IMGT every single day. Is that what he said? Was it 12?
Yeah. It's a lot. Like, oh my God.
Yeah. So like as we're of course gonna have, you know, a little interlude special announcement ad here before we bring on Dr. Robinson. As we do that, think how many times a day, a week, a month, a year you're in IMGT for something. Think about that. Think about that. And as you think about that, we will be right back with Dr. James Robinson after this message.
ASHI membership unlocks exclusive access to ASHI University, a hub featuring over 70 online educational resources offering CE credits and professional support. Members enjoy discounted registration to ASHI meetings and may qualify for travel and registration funding through the Travel Award. Membership includes access to Human Immunology, ASHI's leading scientific journal, along with other resources like ASHI Quarterly and various research articles. Participate in ASHI-hosted meetings and initiatives, connect with peers, and stay informed with the latest updates as an ASHI member. Ready to join? Your membership is just a click away. Visit www.ashi-hla.org and click the Join button in the top right corner.
Hello, everybody. Today's guest is Dr. James Robinson, a bioinformatics scientist with over 25 years of experience in the transplant field. He's best known for developing, you all know it, the original code behind the IMGT HLA database, and has led groundbreaking work in HLA diversity, population genetics, and sequencing. He's currently at Anthony Nolan and holds academic roles at University College London and European Molecular Biology Laboratory, European Bioinformatics Institute, and of course serves on multiple international committees shaping the future of HLA research. He is an absolute rock star. We are so excited to have you. May we call you James?
Of course.
Thank you so much for being with us today on Coffee and Compatibility. We were so glad to get you. You are a busy man. We are recording in this spring, summertime when every meeting that happens in transplantation is happening. So thank you so much for giving us some of your time today. I want to start by offering the audience something that they may not have heard before, and that is some very important history on the development of IMGT HLA database. You are one of the original developers of this database. It is such an ingrained part of what we do. I can't think of a day that goes by that I don't use it in some way, shape, or form. So can you give us some history on the IMGT database? What was the genesis for its development? How has it carried forward those types of background details?
Yeah, sure. So the database, yeah, I've been working on it for 25 to 30 years now. First of all, I'm not an immunogeneticist. I'm originally a geneticist, retrained in bioinformatics because I thought it'd be really interesting, and my lab skills are not very good. But I wanted to stay in science. And I saw an advert for a database role as I was finishing my MSc, and applied, got the role, and that's where it all sort of went from. And at the time, I wasn't really aware of the impact of what I was going to be sort of stepping into. And that really helped. It's one of the fascinating things about the role and what we do. So I joined a project in the late 90s, which was hosted by the Imperial Cancer Research Fund. And at there was Lady Julia Bodmer and Professor Stephen Marsh. They explained to me that they wanted a database building and online to help with these variant genes. And it turns out these were the HLA genes. And I started to learn more about the history and why it was needed. And, it's a really fascinating story because you've got great collaborative efforts from some of our founding fathers coming together and realizing the necessity for a common language when exchanging data about HLA. And from that and from the original work into the serological definitions and then starting to identify the DNA variants, the nomenclature has grown and evolved. But alongside it, very early on, there was the foresight to realize not just naming was important, but the sort of dissemination of the data and making sure that everybody could share that data and use that common language when discussing these molecules. And so I joke sometimes with my team that I did a degree in bioinformatics, and it was at the very start of the internet. So, we were writing web pages when they really sort of first started. So I came along, and my task was to build this system so we could move it from the paper-based distribution, and by paper I mean journals sort of based distribution that Professor Marsh was leading on while he was at Tissue Antigens Laboratory in Oxford. So sending out all of the updates by either published in a paper or by floppy disk. We needed an internet-based system, and there was a grant from the European Union to essentially cover that for a bioinformatician. And so I started on it, and I started to learn about HLA. I started to learn about the complexity of it and built the very first system. And yes, I really did write every single line of code, whether it is the website, whether it's the tools that the curators use, all of those aspects, even built some of the systems to kind of come up with that initial model that is in essence still running today. It's known by its full name is the IPD-IMGT HLA Database. I know it's a bit of a mouthful, often shortened to IMGT, and that's partly because in the original grant it funded the work both of the HLA side and a group in France who are working on the TCRs. People often shorten it to the two. I know if anybody says it to me at a conference, I often look slightly grumpy and tell them the full name of it. But yeah, it's that's what the database is, and it's so important to everything we all do, and it's really both scary and humbling to think back and think we've been building this thing and working on it for all of these years, and how many what the impact of it is. I think there's very few systems you can build where you think actually that saves people's lives, and actually all transplants somehow use this system. I didn't know that when I signed up for it. I'm really, really proud of the work we've done as a team over the years on it. And it's been really, really interesting. The database has developed from their very humble early beginnings to something much more nowadays. I looked back, and I think in the very first release, there was around 900 sequences covering pretty much just exons 2 and 3 of class 2 and exons 2 and 3 for class 1 and exon 2 for class 2. There's now well over 40,000. We've got something like 10,000 HLA-B alleles. We cover genomic sequences up to sort of 15, 16 KB. I didn't realize it was going to get quite so big. But it's there and it's available for everyone to use. And, it's great to see how widely it is used and how often it is used, which is a really,
James,
really good feedback for it.
Yeah. And, I think one of the things, James, that stands out to me is bioinformatician before being a bioinformatician was like the cool thing to do. right? Like now, I would say I'm definitely not that, right? But there are a number of people who are like working, developing those sorts of skills within our community, right? And I think someone like yourself who is sort of like an actual, like for real bioinformatician and has spent their career developing and working on a tool that I think we take for granted, right? You talked about the origin story of how it came to be and where it was at its time. And, where it is today is, I think we, especially in the clinical space, take the freely available, easily accessible nature of the scale of data that you all provide to the global community. It's sort of unprecedented, right? Like, I mean, I think in the world where data is king, you're giving it out at a high quality level for people to make these important decisions on. And one of the things that comes to mind is, there's a lot behind the scenes, not just the like database structure and what you guys have built, but there's a lot of tools that have grown from that you make available to the global community to use. Are there some of those tools that you want to touch on or you think are underappreciated and underutilized from your perspective?
I think, thanks for your comments. Thinking about the database and what it provides and the tools we have, I think we've always been keen to look at what the community wants and provide high quality tools that really deliver what they need. We don't put out hundreds of tools. We don't litter the site with tools. And we've always had a really high bar and about quality. And our ethos has always been everything should be right and we should be putting out the highest quality. And between myself and Professor Marsh over years, that's always been our goal. We joke, we're working on a system where anybody else who had an error rate of 99.99 to the 99% would be very happy. We want everything to be as perfect as possible. Mistakes happen, we know that, but we do move and try and put that high quality data out. That has allowed us to put out some of the tools you mentioned that I think people rely on so heavily because they know what they're getting. And a lot of the tools in one way are not very different to the ones I originally wrote, because I think we did a really good job in identifying what the community wanted and what we needed. And I think in some way, if I think about my legacy as the developer on it, it's not just building it, but the alignment tool that I wrote, the one you go and look at alignments for if you want to do it. I didn't imagine when I wrote that it would be around 25 to 30 years later.
Every day, James.
I didn't
every
imagine that
day.
every 2 to 3 minutes of the day, somebody is going to use it.
No way. It's
Yeah.
being used every 2 to 3 minutes per day.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a stat I'm filing away. I'll use that one. Well
yeah.
done, sir.
Not a bad effort, really. But it's really robust and it's really good and consistent and strong. And that's what we've aimed for with a lot of our tools. Let's not kind of swamp the market with lots of tools for the sake of it. Let's do the right tools. And I think we can see that with a lot of the work we've done. We have developed tools more recently. I mean, what the user doesn't often see is the amount of work that goes into the back end to change all the tools to make sure they're constantly up to date, make sure they're constantly usable. The alignment tool was written when we only had a few hundred alleles for a gene and a few hundred bases. Now it has to cope with tens of thousands of alleles at thousands of bases. How do you keep that fresh and alive and working? The allele queries, how do we make sure we've got the right database infrastructure behind it? How do we provide the information you need? And our user base has changed. When I started, it was all very much about a point and click kind of interface. People wanted to go on, they wanted to use the website, drop down menu, point, click, align. Bioinformaticians now, there's a lot more of us. And so we've been silently in the background replacing a lot of the tools with APIs. So there's a lot more interaction for automated queries, things like that. That really makes our data more accessible to a different audience, I think. And that's key to what we do. You look at some of our matching tools as well, things like the DPB calculator. I think they're great examples of where we're providing a certain tier of data and insight, and we're partnering with key people who have got important findings, important clinical tools, and allowing that platform to work for both of us to get tools like that to the community so they can use them. So there's great examples like that of how I think the database goes beyond just the nomenclature and as a portal to the nomenclature, but starts thinking about the next phase of how we can help the community with what we do. And as you said, it's all there. It's all freely available to everyone. It's quite unique in that method, I think. And I think as a field, we're also quite unique in that data sharing and shared nomenclature in the way that we interact, and we have that data understanding between different groups around the world. So that's also really important to the database.
Yeah, I think bioinformaticians are an absolutely vital part of so many scientific niches. Absolutely ours. I am shocked that when you saw the complicated nature of what histocompatibility and immunogenetics is, that you didn't bolt. We're so grateful that you stuck it out. But you have formed, as you mentioned, these really key partnerships. IMGT is alive and growing. You've got B-Leader tools. You've got T-cell epitope tools. You're moving with the updates in the data that we're getting from more and more sequencing depth. We had DP alpha 020201 is now redefined as 0207. I think the most impactful change that's super recent is the idea now that C0409 null is actually a low expressor and is now C0409L. And I can't take credit for this question because Eric Weimer is chiming on this question, but I'm stealing it from him because I'm the current vice chair of the OPTN Histocompatibility Committee. So we had to put out a notice to users in the US transplant system. When you are using the National Transplant Database, if you have a donor or a patient that's an 0409 null, actually, very importantly, this could be an expressed allele. And we've actually gotten some questions after programming that update showing that the serology is still noted as null, though. The WHO equivalent is still noted as a null. So I want to ask, how should users be thinking about that? Because there's still kind of this transitional dichotomy in that example. What are your thoughts on that?
How did I know you were going to ask about the 0409? Yeah. Look, I'll say, rather than sort of dwell on that particular allele too much, one of the things we're aware of in the database is we started out, we didn't ask for full-length sequences for everything at the beginning because technology was, you couldn't do it. Technology has evolved massively, and it's one of the things that makes working on HLA really interesting. I remember describing it at ASHI once. We're going further, faster, and longer when we come to our sequencing. We can do more, we can put more on. We're getting so much more information. With more information, there are going to be occasions where some of the information we had before was maybe incomplete, or we get new information. We are not, within the database, within the nomenclature committee, we do look at all the information that comes through and try and work out whether things might need to be renamed. Was something originally not sequenced properly? Is there a sequencing error? Has new information come into light that changes things? If you look in every release, in our release notes, you'll see a little section at the bottom that tells you where things have changed. We don't try and hide it. We know these things are happening. We try and make it available. One of the things about the 0409, it's a really common one. If it had been some of our very, very rare ones, I don't think we would have had some of the impact it has. And people are right to ask about what's happening. What does it mean? And on one hand, I could say from a database point of view, we've done exactly what we need to do. We've taken the evidence, we've looked at it, we've adjusted, the information and we've made the new information available to the community. I do appreciate that from a community point of view, it's quite a change. And how we migrate or mitigate for that change going out downstream is a challenge. It could happen again for another allele. How do we make sure that previous publications or assignments are all brought up to the same level at the same time? That can be tricky because we can refer to previous publications where, as you say, you might still have an N, but now we're calling it an L. So how do we keep that consistency? How can we keep that messaging through? And I think part of that is through the work of the nomenclature committee and actually reviewing what's happening, where we need the allele name changes. Part of that is through the database. The database needs to look at how we disseminate that information. And so I think lots of people think the nomenclature and the database are the same thing. They're not. They work very, very close together, but there are aspects of each that take on different roles. And then how do we work with the community, and how do community groups, I'm going to say community groups, I'm thinking more the accreditation bodies, standards committees, how do they then work with the database and their users to make sure all of these changes are adequately sort of migrated out and propagated out and worked through? And I think that's, it's something that the 0409 highlighted. And I expect we're going to have a whole load of questions like that coming forward, because, we are going to see changes to nomenclature again moving forward, whether it's single alleles or it's wider changes.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I mean, changes, as you said, the pace of adoption of new technology and what we can and do is just not the same. Right. But I can't let you go without bringing up like the evolution of nomenclature and where we are going with it. And so I'm talking about the studies that have been done by the Stanford group,
Yep.
about new stereotypes of naming and nomenclature. And I sort of want to just hear, what do you think about it? Like, how do you, from your like position within IMGT, how does that, what can and are we going to do?
What can and what we're into. I mean, since I started, the nomenclature itself, I think, has changed multiple times. I was looking at it earlier, and I started then there were 4 digits, then there were 5, then I think there was 7, then there was 8, and then we put the colons in. These things are always going to happen. We have a really dynamic and interesting gene system we look at. We have a nomenclature system that is far more advanced than many, many other fields. Not just the fact that we have a consistent nomenclature committee and we have a database that proves it all, but the fact that we look at combinations of SNPs and define them as alleles, not individual points. What we sequence, how we sequence, if we go even further out of the genes, there will be all sorts of questions that we're going to have to look at. The serology one, yes, it's one of the most pressing ones, I think, at the moment, which people are interested in. There is obviously that new body of work, new possible assignments. As and when that's ratified by the nomenclature committee, I would expect an update to be published, a new report. As and when something like that is published, then we would be looking to incorporate those parts into the database where relevant, because we need to represent what's in the official nomenclature. I'm currently thinking about how best to, if you like, propagate that information, because I realize, much like the 0409 issue, it could be a really big issue for our users. There will be some systems that maybe don't like the new assignments and don't let them be automatically imported. There will be other people asking, well, what do I use here? What do I use there? How should I adapt it? And I think it's really interesting that we're moving forward with this. And it shows a lot of promise and excitement. I think it's, again, as I said earlier, it's about how we manage the change, I suppose. And how do we do that? And how do we keep, like I said before, the nomenclature committee, the database, things like ASHI's accreditation bodies, FE standards, WMDA, how do we keep all of those people informed so that it can be rolled out to everyone with almost the least resistance?
Thank you for recapping for us all the history behind IMGT, for taking us through the development of the tools, for being so transparent about the fact that the database is the database, it's not meant to be the decider for how you use the information in it. We look forward to seeing all of the new developments that come out of the nomenclature committee's decisions. I know that that publication is in progress right now, and it's probably going to come out in the coming months. I know we're all excited to see that and the impact that it has on the database. James Robison, thank you so much for being with us today on Coffee and Compatibility.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'd like to give a quick Tech Talk shout out to Mackenzie Gardner, the second shift lead at DCI Lab in Nashville, Tennessee. Mackenzie has been holding things down on the second shift, and she and her colleagues wanted to recognize all of her incredible work. Mackenzie was nominated by April Roberts, who shared how Mackenzie stays calm, steady, and always supportive no matter how busy things get. She's a go-to resource in her lab and a cheerful teacher and a key part of their team. Mackenzie, on behalf of everyone here at Coffee and Compatibility, we want to tell you congratulations and thank you for everything you do for your team and for the patients in your area. Hey there, Coffee and Compatibility listeners. Do you have a technologist that you'd like to spotlight? Nominate them by sharing their story with us. Email us at info@ashi-hla.org for a chance to feature them in an upcoming episode of Coffee and Compatibility. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a few moments to recap our thoughts on today's episode.
What an amazing opportunity to talk to a legend. I mean, we're all like behind the scenes in our clinical practice. I feel like James is behind the scenes in what he does, but he is a legend.
Yeah, he's totally underappreciated. And I think the global impact that, we know he has, I think is not fully appreciated, and the team that goes on that he has to make that into a reality. I mean, think of the clinical trials and the vaccine trials and the drug trials and just regular everyday standard of care patient care that is done using HLA typing falls from the system and the database that he and his group have put together. And, I think I can say this for Dr. Hitchman as well. It's not as big of a team as you would imagine behind the scenes doing all of this and keeping it like running through the evolution of our space. And, that this is made freely available to all of us. And, you gotta recognize that.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually want to share a few bits of those details with our listeners because James clued us in on some things that blow my mind. Like I said, I am in IMGT one way or another pretty much daily. I think a lot of us could probably say that. That whole system runs on, James tells us, 2 curators, 1 full-time developer, 1 lead, James, and 1 PI, Dr. Stephen Marsh. That is it. That is the team holding up, developing, and constantly updating your IMGT HLA database. Unbelievable. And that does not just happen. So something that I would implore our listeners and our community, please consider. There are a lot of things to donate to. There are a lot of monetary concerns and considerations these days. But think about how often you utilize this invaluable database and all the tools in it. Consider supporting this database with your funds and your voice. We will be linking a website to donate funds to this effort of keeping IMGT HLA up to date and revolutionary as it has been. This is www.ebi.ac.uk/IPD/HLA/about/funding. I'm sure that you can find this on the IPD-IMGT HLA website. However, and again, we're going to link it here in the episode. Please consider, if you're going to fund something this year, think about the tools you use that are invaluable to the work that you do and put your support behind this. Mention it at your meetings. We're going to mention it at ASHI. If you go to EFI, mention it at EFI. Mention it at OPTN meetings. Just if you are at a meeting, this is a community tool for the world. Like, put it out there. They need our support.
Yeah, I mean, like, we live in a world where data is king, and that's something I've said before. And they are making a tremendous amount of data, not only available, but high quality, structured data that we routinely use all the time, and not charging the end user for that access and use of it. And it's like unheard of in today's, data gobbling society, right? So, well done. I mean, the foresight necessary to build and maintain this as our field has grown and evolved, and the willingness to be open to what the community needs and develop, targeted tools in a high quality manner. I mean, just hats off, man. Like, that is just tremendous amount of gratitude towards James and his team, to keep this ship afloat and running. So, I mean, we could talk to him forever. There's so many things that go on there. Awesome. Well, until next time, guys. Bye.